Hey, listen, welcome to the first edition of Shooting Straight from the Hip, right? This is a new segment that I've been wanting to start for quite some time, surrounding having conversation with real people in the community. Wanted to talk to real people because I help so many fathers. And I always, most of the time, have been speaking to professionals and never really gave the audience opportunity to speak to real dads, real people, real mothers, and even grandmothers, right, who have been impacted by a father or lack thereof, or even their journey as a parent, right? So that's what this is all about. And I am so honored, right, here to have you, Mr. Melvin Eckels, as my first guest on Shooting from the Hip. And so, like I told you off set, and I will tell everybody, is that I'm gonna shoot from the hip. I'm gonna ask you questions, and if you're not ready, you don't want to answer it, bro, I want you to say, I'm not ready for that, man, or come back, give me some time to think, right? So I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you accepting my request to come on this set, man, to talk to me, brother. So how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm doing real good, really no complaints. Kind of just taking everything as it comes.
Taking everything as it comes. Well, you say you taking everything as it comes. Say, I know you. I know how you grind. I know your grind. I know how you go after the things that you're trying to pursue in life. But I know who you are. But I don't think the audience know who Melvin Eckels is. So who are you?
I'm a dad. I'm a guy that don't have all the answers, but learning every day. I work with men and women. I enjoy impacting families, helping them out. A lot of the stuff that I help people through is lived experiences. Yeah, it's good for me to engage with people that may have similar struggles or may have experienced similar things as me. So I'm just glad to be of service to people, glad to be able to give insight and understanding, provide support.
Yeah. So that's cool, right? So listen, I doing this work, man, I meet a lot of people where I ask them, why do they do what they do? And a lot of times, man, people, they have a personal experience of why they do what they do as far as the work that they are in. So my question to you is, why do you work with men? Like, why men? Why not children? Why not mothers? And I know you indirectly impact that demographic, but why do you work with men specifically?
I believe men need that support. I think a lot of us may have not had that role model. It's hard to be something that you never seen. I've learned over time that I just was mimicking things that wasn't right. So to be able to connect with men and be able to understand their challenges with providing, co-parenting, to give them support, to know that they don't have to know everything or have all the answers, but to be present. If that means in the house or co-parenting. Me personally, I didn't have that best relationship with my father, but I had some uncles, a couple uncles and a grandfather who was present to kind of teach me the basics of being a man, to work, to provide some spirituality along the way, but how to show emotions and how to communicate as a co-parent, I just didn't know that. It took me years to figure that out, years to be the person I am today. So my goal is to help guys and dads not have to go so long without it, to be able to say, hey, look, I understand the struggles and the challenges you may face. Being a dad, it's hard to be a man, to stick around. It's easy to quit. The easiest thing it is to do is just give up and quit. So I try to give guys that support so that they don't take that road. And it's rewarding to see a dad have some contact with his child, or to just see a man do things that we're supposed to do, to provide, to be good people.
No, I appreciate that. So my thing is all, who you are today. Like, my children see me and they see me of who I am today, and they don't know their father who he used to be, right?
Absolutely.
So right now they getting the best version of me as a parent, as a, seeing me interact with their mother. They're getting the best version of me at this point, right? In all of the 49 years I've been on this planet. So my question to you is, it will be hard for me to believe that you have always been this person.
Not at all. I haven't become this person probably in the last 10 years. I struggle with all kind of things as a person. So my kids, they're seeing the best version of me now because I took time to work on myself. I realized that I had to get better as a person and as a father. I struggle with keeping a job, being able to communicate healthy with their mother, being able to provide, just to understand that nurturing and give that love and support that a father's supposed to be. Again, I didn't really have it growing up. I knew that I was supposed to work and provide, but everything else, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I can say that it was a time where I was just a boy in a man's body. I thought as a boy, didn't really get it. Wasn't intentional.
So speak to that to me. Like what was that? What was that boy in a man's body? Because you brought up even the way you communicated. You don't communicate that way anymore, right? So I think that you're an incredible communicator. So if you're saying that you didn't communicate well and that you was this boy in this man's body, speak to that for me.
Just how it sounds. I thought childish, very selfish. Wasn't thinking about the end game. How what I say or do, how it not just impact me, but my kids. So just childish things. Like I said, didn't have the best relationship with my kids' mom. It was easy for me to leave. I left, wasn't really there, wasn't available the way that I should have been. It was easy for me to walk away. Sometimes I realized for me when it got hard, when life got to life, and it was just easy for me to walk away. And unfortunately, I walked away from my kids at times, my responsibilities as a parent, as a co-parent. It just was easy to walk away when it got rough.
And why was it easy? Right? Like, why was it easy? Like, what made you walk away? Because I know you love your kids.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, when you talk about your kids, you always light up, right? You talk about how they're teachers, even though you are not in the same community with them at this time, but their teachers know you, you always light up. So, like, how was it easy for you to walk away?
I didn't know nothing else. I didn't know to stay and fight. I didn't know how to communicate and make it through them challenges, disagreements. I didn't know how to deal with failures, with life. Being scared. I was scared to step into a role I didn't know nothing about. Right? Again, I knew that I needed to work, but that was it. That's really what I was taught as a kid, that a man is supposed to work.
Yeah.
Everything else that comes with that, I didn't know it. I just didn't. It was easy for me. I was afraid. I was afraid that I would fail as a father.
Yeah.
Excuse me, simply because my pops wasn't there. But I understand that. I think that it was a pattern. I think that he just didn't. And
that was what I was going to ask you.
Absolutely.
I was going to ask you, because you mentioned that your dad wasn't there, and I was going to ask you, do you think that by your father not being present, even though you had a grandfather and you had uncles that was present, do you contribute or think that your father not being present wasn't an excuse, but do you think that impacted you or made it easier for you to walk away?
It did.
How so?
It just felt easy. It just like a pattern. Like he wasn't there, and that's all I knew was the absence of it. I think that it made me a better person as I got older, when I started to realize that he may have just had similar challenges, being afraid, didn't really get. I don't think no one wakes up one day and say, "Hey, I'm just going to be a horrible dad, a horrible
Being
co-parent."
afraid of what?
That role, it's hard itself to be a man. Our expectations is to provide and protect and have all the answers and no emotions and deal with everything. We're the fixers. So when you can't fix something, or you don't have the knowledge or the strength or the know-how, it's afraid. It's scary. It's scary to go in with the expectation that I ain't gonna win. Right? Who goes into a fight or goes into a situation and not believe that they have what it takes to win. And being a dad is hard, especially in my community. You know, I can probably count on one hand how many of my friends had both parents in the house. I grew up where, you know, we idolized moms who stuck around. Not taking any shots at the dads, I'm imagining that they probably face the same fears that I face.
Yeah.
Like, how do I do this? How do I be valuable? So I get it. I get it now.
Yeah.
But growing up, you didn't get it. You just like, hey, it's not here. This isn't working. One argument, I'm gone. You know, we just, you know, I felt like your kids, right? You know, I really don't have no responsibility, no obligation here. But as time went on, I realized the damage of that. I started to realize that I was creating little kids that was going to feel the same way I did.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't want to be responsible for that hurt for someone else. But it took me a while. I didn't know this at the time, and no one ever took time to give me any direction or help as it relates to being a man across the board.
Yeah. So being raised by a grandfather, right? That, when I hear the word grandfather, that sounds like somebody who's old school or whatever the case. And then having uncles, right? So what was that like growing up? Like, was their influence? Was their influence a positive influence on you, right? Did that? And let me ask that. I want to ask twofold. Was their influence positive on you? And although you had an uncle and a grandfather, did that satisfy your desire to have your father? Or did you even desire to have your father?
It didn't. I desired to have my father. Like, you know, I wanted that. I wanted to be able to say mom and dad in the same house or even in the same sentence. My grandfather really provided. Old school, right? You're going to work, you're going to go to church. Anything else, there's no time for it. You get up, you go to work, you come home, you eat, you pray. This is it. Nothing else. You know, my grandfather, amazing person, provided, but never threw a ball. Never sat down and, you know, talked.
Yeah.
So I mimicked that. So I work. I'm a hard worker. I know I am. I'm first to come, last to go. And that's just been embedded in me. My uncles, the two that really influenced me was the same way. Just work. Wasn't good fathers or good co-parents. Then I had a couple more uncles who they base their success in being a man on the car that they drove or the amount of clothes they had, different women. So growing up, you know, I kind of figured like, well, as a guy, you're supposed to have 3 or 4 different women. None of them were married or had, you know, they lived the life of a bachelor or a playboy, so to speak. So being a young man, mimicking these people in the house, it was like, okay, I got to work, make sure I look good and date. No one ever said, hey, listen, you know, you're going to impact people's lives. You're going to be able to make a difference for people. There's more to life than this.
Yeah.
And again, as I think about it, they didn't have no one role modeling it to them.
Yeah.
So how can I expect them to know something or teach me something when they just showing me what they know?
Yeah. So were you... So when we thinking about that, you know, and I'm just thinking about some of the young men and the men that we work with. So let me ask you, like, how did you express yourself? Like, did you have emotions around that time, or like, I know you had emotions, but what type of emotions or, you know, behaviors that were being seen or displayed during your early years of your father not being around? Was it okay for you to show emotions or talk about you wanting your father? Were you able to cry? Were you able to, you know, I just want to know that aspect because, you know, growing up with a old school grandfather, I just don't know. I know my dad is a grandfather. My dad is like 85 years old. So I have a very old school dad, right? I never seen him cry. The first time I seen him cry was my brother was murdered. And so that was the only time. And I'm not going to say that was the last time because I did see him cry probably about a year or so ago, since he's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It was a segment in there where I've seen him show vulnerability. But when he was in his right mind, bro, he wasn't showing that emotion. And so I believe that where my father was at that moment, that he was being that little boy again, of displaying these emotions that he wanted to display, but never was able to display, to me. So I know about old school, right? So my thing is just, asking you the aspect of, were you able to share?
Not at all. I've never, my grandfather and my two uncles that I was mentioning, they have since passed away, never seen them cry. Never, ever seen them cry. I have uncles, one uncle who I really looked up to, another uncle who was big and, everything. I seen him cry just a little, like put his head down in emotions when my mother passed away. But other than that, that wasn't acceptable, right?
Did they tell you it wasn't acceptable?
Oh, yeah, what you crying for? Little girl, don't cry, this or that. So we just didn't do it. No one shared emotions. In my household, it was rare. I didn't start hearing people say they love you until someone passed away.
Wow.
So until I got in my 30s, that wasn't even a word. We sing it in a song, but to actually look at someone and say, man, I love you.
So do you think that impacted the way that you interacted with your the women you dated?
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt.
How so?
Just wasn't able to show that. Wasn't able to say, hey, look, I really love you or appreciate you.
But did you love them?
I did. I realized that in relationships for me, I think that I loved them feeling a void. I wanted to be able to demonstrate that and the love that came with that, and just unfortunately wasn't getting it nowhere else, so other in relationships. So I tried to make something out of something that probably wasn't really there, because I was using that as a crutch. I needed that.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to be loved. So when you don't get it at home, I was trying to find it in relationships.
But you was showing it the way that you knew how to
That's
show it.
I figure if I'm here and I get up when you hear noise, I love you, right?
Come
I take the
on.
trash out.
Come on.
What else you need me to do? And I figured that was it. And then along the line, what made me feel like the people I mimicked was being able to provide. Being able to provide was, to me, all it took. So I never was one, even as a child, even young, to just sit around and do nothing.
Yeah.
I was cutting grass, shoveling the snow, caddy at a golf course. I found out at an early age that you have to do something to bring in some type of money for yourself.
Wow. No, that's powerful. So my question, so you talk about how your father not being present, you believe impacted the way you interact with women, that you dated in the past, and why it was a little bit easier for you to walk away. But tell me how not having your father around helped you in a positive way, the way you parent your children today.
I want that relationship, but I haven't always been this way.
Talk to me about that.
Just wasn't really there. Didn't know how to communicate. Didn't know what it meant to be a father. So with my father not being there, I had this amazing relationship with my mother, which taught me to be a good person.
Yeah.
And just taught me that, well, it really was all I had was my mother. So my love for my mother, and I think my love for single moms, I really understand it. It's hard to raise a man as a man. I got sons. Excuse me. So it's hard for me to do that. So to only imagine a mom trying to do it.
Yeah.
So I try to be present. So I've learned that, and I look at myself. I realize that my kids, when I look at them, I see everything I wanted everything that I wanted, I see them. And I realize that when they look at me, they see everything that they want to be. So I see my past in my son, and I hope when he look at me, he see his future. So I try to communicate good.
Yeah. Right. So you say that, I mean, that you're present, but your children live in a whole nother state. So how are you present and you're not in the
same field, same house? For me, just to go back a little bit, my father was just not at all reachable. Bad choices he made kind of took him out of the game, so to speak. So when I needed someone, I didn't have no one, right? I had people around, but I couldn't go in there and say, hey, look, I'm struggling with this, or, you know, I feel some type of way. They weren't listening to that, and I wasn't allowed to show those emotions.
Yeah.
For me, with my kids, even though I may not have access to them to put hands on them, so to speak, but I'm always available. You know, when they call, I pick up. I go visit them a lot. And I have some older children who, unfortunately, just didn't get that. They just didn't get what I am now. So one of my daughters, I can remember she told me one time that I was such a good father. And I really felt bad. I really felt like I didn't deserve that praise because she was basing on what she see now.
Wow.
So when she was a kid, I was not this person.
Wow.
Not at all. Just didn't communicate good with her mom, wasn't respectful to her mom. Every way that I treated her mom, just in communication, was not acceptable.
Wow.
Right? So I always tell her that, and I always say, well, you know, you didn't really see that.
Wow.
So it's good that I'm able to not continue that pattern.
Wow.
I just wasn't a good mate because I didn't know how.
Yeah.
Right. And then you mix a little substance abuse in it. I would drink.
Yeah.
Right. Like so many other people never did any other substance but drinking.
Yeah.
And I've realized now that I'm older that I use that as a way of dealing with life. So if you don't have no one to step up when life get to life, and often people use substance abuse.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal for me to understand that. And in my families, mental health was present. I mean, like, how couldn't it be, right?
Yeah.
But I grew up in what happens in this house stays in this house. So people having episodes and the aggression and the fighting and the domestic issues, it was normal.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just normal in my house, it was normal in the house across the street and up the street. Like I said, I can only think of right off the top of my head, maybe 2 friends I had where their father and mother was in the house. And whenever we was together, it was like such a good thing to hear my friends say, hey, Mom, my dad said.
Wow.
Or to go over their house and see them both there after work. It just didn't happen. Just didn't happen at all. And because of that, I'm realizing now that I'm grown and I had the opportunity to just experience some things.
Yeah.
It was a pattern.
That's good.
And I can't be mad or bitter about that because they didn't know.
Yeah.
Even my mother, my grandmother, it just was patterns.
Yeah.
Right. And if you knew better, you do better.
It's, man. So my thing is, like, so this better version of you that you talk about, that she wasn't that person, and so where you are today, like, how and what was it where that turn came in to where we are starting to see this new Melvin, right? Like, where did that turn come?
It's hard to say, I guess. I think life. I realized I didn't really have no one else, right? Like I mentioned, my mom passed away. Family was far and in between. I had a son, and I can remember telling my son when he was little, like, he wouldn't remember this because he was a baby, and I remember saying that I'll always be here for you.
Wow.
I want to be a dad.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes we're forced into that position. I was forced into a position that I wasn't prepared for.
Yeah.
Didn't know nothing about. No training, no orientation for the first week or nothing.
Yeah.
You know, because of going into a relationship not being prepared, And no one
Yeah.
told me that. No one said, hey, listen, you know, every time you meet someone, it's not going to be the one, and you have to use some type of protection and this and that. But I was measuring my success based on my uncles.
Yeah.
I used to see them with different girlfriends and all this and that. So I love being a dad, but I didn't know. I didn't know it's hard to really love something and be something that you didn't know.
Yeah.
So when my son came along, it was the process. I was starting to really get myself together. So now I embrace being a dad.
So let me ask you, so were you ever able, and you never told me this or whatever the case, but I just want to ask you, this is what I'm thinking about. Have you ever forgiven yourself, or did you ever think that you needed to forgive you?
Absolutely.
Absolutely what?
I needed to forgive myself and realize that.
And so you say that you have forgiven yourself?
I have. I've trust me now. See, before I didn't. I'm like happy to be me. And something I always tell people, like, I'm just not going to let me down no more. Every decision I make, I think about what I want this to look like. I realize that I can't change anything in my past. And I realize that I can't change other people neither.
Yeah.
I realize that you're going to mimic what you see.
Yeah.
So once I was able to forgive myself from bad choices and just not doing the best, I was able to forgive others. So I don't, as of today's date, I don't hold anything against no charge to nobody, not even myself. I realize that it's all about moving forward.
So with that being said, you know, you've forgiven yourself. Who was the hardest person that you had to forgive or you still need to forgive?
Probably my dad. Right now, my father's sick, very, very sick, and I kind of struggled with this in the beginning. Just didn't communicate for like the last year and a half, 2 years. We had no communication. So I get a call, from a family member. Hey, your father's sick. You may need to go see him or get him to go to the hospital and whatnot. And for like a day, I didn't. I was like, I'm not going. But as I sat by myself in some quiet time, I realized that I enjoy serving people. So how can I help all these people that I do and love doing it? Wake up in the morning with the intention of how can I help somebody? How can I make someone's journey or life just a little better? How can I get up and do this, but won't extend that same thing to my father? And in the midst of me realizing that, I also realized that the same way that my daughters forgive me and think I'm such a great dad, that has to be extended to him. So lately I've been going just visiting. A part of me really wanted him to apologize. Selfishly, I was going for one reason, for him to look at me and say, hey, I'm sorry for not just how he did me, but how he did my mom. And I wanted him, still to this day I do, would love for him to say that. And I want him to say, I'm proud of you, of who you became without me. So once I realized that I may not get that, from a biblical standpoint, I'm supposed to honor thy mother and father, regardless of what it is. So I go see him a lot now, try to make his appointments, stay at the hospital with him, whatever. And I can honestly say that when I am with him, none of that stuff even matters. I'll never bring it up, and I can tell that when we are together, me being his oldest son, oldest child, that he's thankful for it. And whenever he starts to maybe talk about something in the past, I just change it.
Why?
Well, he's very sick, and I would hate for that to be the last thing that he feel like he let me down or disappointed me. Right? I want you to just be like, hey, let's just be happy together, and we talk about stuff. We watch like cowboy stuff I'm not interested in. Right? I don't watch cowboy movies, but the chances of us going outside playing catch just ain't happening. Him teaching me to fly a kite, so right now I'm just gonna love the time with him and just love him as my dad, and that's it. Nothing matters.
Two things you said, right? Just what if that is his way of saying that he's sorry?
I think he is saying it. I think what he's giving me isn't verbal. I can tell.
Yeah.
I can tell.
Because my dad, a few years ago, when I was at home, and you heard me say this before, when I was at his house, I was laying down with my wife, and my dad came into the guest bedroom where we were. He sat at the edge of the bed, didn't turn around, didn't say a word, placed his hand on my chest, and sat it there for about maybe 10 seconds, which felt like eternity.
Absolutely.
And he got up and walked out. I cried like a baby.
Absolutely.
Because I knew that that was his way of saying, I'm sorry. He didn't know how to verbalize it.
And I believe that. So I think he gets a big enjoyment, like when the nurses come in and people come in, he be like, that's my son.
That's my son.
Right. So I won't take that from him.
And could that be him saying, I'm proud of you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the two things that you went down there for.
I've got him, but not verbally.
You've got him, but not verbally. Not the way that you wanted him, or the way that you appear or think you need him, but he's doing it the way that he knows how.
That's it. That's it. I get it. And I remember you telling me about the touch from your father. And as I was sitting with him, I went to see him at home, and he'd be like, come here with me and sit. So I'll sit at the side of his bed and we'll talk and we'll watch stuff in the midst of him being sick.
Cowboy movies.
Yeah, like I'm not interested in John Wayne or something. I want to watch Training Day, right?
Yeah.
But I get it. And even me right now today is priceless to be able to have that moment with him. I realized that what I wanted from him wasn't nothing but his time.
Yeah.
And if I can get it now, it's just as important to me.
Yeah.
Just to sit there and just to be in his presence.
Yeah. And I think that's what he's giving you, though.
It is.
I want you to really, really pay attention to that.
I do. I actually look forward to, like today, I'm going to go and
I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you.
Okay.
I want to challenge you.
Okay.
It sounds silly, right? But when I train people on how to speak and do all this type of stuff, I tell them to do silly stuff, right? Feel uncomfortable, right? I remember, are you old enough to remember Little Rascals?
I do.
There was an episode when Little Rascals, when it was Spanky, I think, he got a whooping.
Okay.
And prior to his whooping, he went and put some books in his pants. So when he got a spanking, he wouldn't feel it.
Okay.
And then when he got done, what he did, he went in the bathroom and just started smiling so he could stop crying, right? Seemed to be stupid. But my dad told me he's gonna give me a spanking this day. Okay. Well, let me just tell you, the books didn't really work, right? I put the little book in my pants. He could hear the sound of the book, so he removed the book. So that didn't work.
Like he wasn't gonna notice that.
Yeah, like he wasn't gonna notice. But what I did when I got done, I went in the bathroom and I looked at myself in the mirror and I just started smiling. Even though this hurt, started smiling.
Right, absolutely.
And then what wound up happening, Melvin, I stopped crying. I was like, you look stupid and this is silly, but I stopped crying. And so my thing that I'm saying to you is today, you mentioned about your father and him not teaching you how to throw and all those type of things. I do want to challenge you to stop by the store and pick up a ball.
Okay.
And just go play catch with your father.
Absolutely. Something else that I realized.
I don't want you to move just yet. All right,
Okay,
I do. We're gonna go on to the next portion, but I just want to just invite you, right, to even if it's a baseball, underhand throw, whatever it is, just to give your dad an opportunity to throw you the ball and you throw it back to him. It may feel silly, it may look silly, but I just ask you
to do that.
Do that.
I can do that. I guess when I just was at the house with him, it's funny that you're saying this because we sit for a little bit and watch the Olympics. So that's like our sports moment.
Yeah, yes.
Right? And in the midst of him being old and medicated, he told me that I could go to the Olympics and I could throw that thing off the net.
Yes,
like,
sir.
He said, you could throw it farther than that. I'm thinking like, But
Come on with
we
it.
definitely
Come on.
just a couple of days ago we watched the Olympics together, so it was
Your
very
dad said,
rewarding.
"Yo, boy, you can do that. My son could do that."
Right, you can go to the Olympics and
Yeah.
this and that. So it's pretty cool, right? I don't
Dad,
know
I don't think I
anyone
see anybody with gray hair.
Yeah, or I don't know if I see anybody like throwing that from our area, but I'll always remember that. So we have been watching like some sports together and different things. So it's good. I really realized today what really was important and how important is the past.
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
realized it's just not.
Yeah.
It's just not. I don't want to spend any time with him even talking about that. The same way that my daughter, and I thought about this, the same approach that she had, I have to have.
Yeah.
We never talk about anything. And when I did try to talk to her about me not being there and how I could have did things different, she just says to me, I know.
That's good.
And she don't even want to go into it. And like to this day, we don't talk about it. So the same things that I want for myself and I extend to the population we serve and the hundreds of people I work with, I have to extend it to my own.
Come on, man.
My own people. Right?
Come on, man.
I don't want to be
Don't be a public success.
I was just about to in a private failure.
Yeah.
Don't walk you through this and I'm stuck in it myself.
Come on, man.
So we like in a good place.
I love it, Melvin.
We are, and this new relationship with my father has just really blossomed in the last 10 days.
Yeah.
The 10 days that I'll be with him at the hospital. It'll be 3, 4 in the morning when the nurses come and he's like, "This is my son," right? His name's Melvin too, so he really enjoyed
I love it,
letting
man.
all the nurses know that I'm not just his son, but his older son.
I love it.
And I went to see him, and I got there like 8 in the morning, and it was about 5 or 6 at night, and he said, "You can go. You've been here with me all day." So I left. I did. But when he woke up the next morning, I was back.
Come on.
And he's like, "You still been here?" I'm like, "No, I left for a minute." I did. I went home, and it's about an hour drive, so I went home, came back this way, and it worked out for me.
That's good.
So I think he looked forward to that, because another good thing about it is the nurses and my stepmother, she always say, "He don't listen to nobody but you."
Come on, man.
And I'm thinking like, what's the meaning behind that?
Come
But
on, man.
like I say, "Pops, you have to take this medicine." He'll take it. "You got to do this or do that." He'll do it. So I think it's good for both of us.
That's what I was going to ask you. I know it's good for him, but do you think it's good for you?
It is. It is. It definitely is. I'm just going to be the, I'm not worried about him being a good father. I just need to be the best son I can be. So it ain't about him no more. It's about me just being the best son that I can be. That's it. Nothing else matters. So we in a good place.
Come on.
Excuse me, we are in a very good place.
Come on.
We are.
Melvin, thank you for being on Shooting from the Hip.
Thank you.
And you just made me add another piece to it. And so it's going to be called Shooting from the Hip and Growing from the Inside Out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because I want people to, when they leave, just to be a little bit better when they get done. And I want those who listen to your story to be a little bit better.
That's it.
Yeah, and I know that many people will be impacted. That if you can forgive your father and if you can forgive yourself,
everything's okay.
Come on.
We don't, small things to a giant. I just want to be
come on, brother.
the best son I can be. Everything else falls into place.
That's good.
It's good. It's good.
Melvin,
yep. Thanks for having me. It's always
Thanks.
good to talk to you, Mr. Hart.
I appreciate it, brother.
You find a way to put things in perspective. You find a way for me to not look outward, but look inward. And that's usually where it starts for me.
Yeah.
I'm so busy looking out at people, diagnosing, fixing, that I never look in.
Come on.
So it's good for me.
I appreciate it.
To practice what you preach.
Come on.
Right? To put it real simple.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm thankful for that.
And I'm thankful for you, man. I appreciate you.
that. Thank you.
Yeah, let's get it.
Yep.
Until next time, I always say it, man. Don't be average. you might as well be elite.